Be ready. 5 seconds.
The problem of brain drain has some of its roots in the unwise development plans we have been adopting since independence. Much reform and initiative was necessary to support India's development, but since they were not available adequately or coordinated efficiently, their output has not been as useful as desired. Our policy makers increased the opportunities for higher learning several fold in the early decades of nationhood, but failed to give sufficient thrust for social development necessary to provide gainful employment to the output from universities. Hence, owing to the poor state of development in the different social arenas, the trained and skilled manpower which came out of our higher education system could not be optimally utilized. The consequent mismatch between supply of educated and trained people and the demand for them in developmental activity was responsible for the decision of many to leave the country in search of education or employment. However, it would not be entirely correct to suggest that developmental activity was inadequate and fragile so that educated people could not offer their services to society. In a way, the opposite was true. Every sector of human activity was yearning for development and therefore was looking for advice and expertise. In fact, many sectors, particularly those of human welfare and infrastructure, had to be built up virtually from scratch to make them contribute to the overall development process. Therefore, more than the lack of opportunities for service, it was the lack of motivation of educated individuals to serve society that was actually responsible for the phenomenon of brain drain. Certain characteristics of Indian society are responsible for this lack of enthusiasm and motivation to serve society. Nepotism, favoritism, jealousy, deception, and a general reluctance to encourage and recognize merit are some of the features prevalent in our society in volumes much more than those in societies elsewhere. These vices are often severe enough to drive our brilliant youth out of the country. Unless we attribute a substantial portion of the blame for brain drain on these vices and try to minimize their influence on the morale of young people, if not eliminate the vices altogether from society, we shall not be able to find a durable solution to the problem of brain drain. Since a war against attitudes aimed at their subjugation and eventual elimination cannot be won easily, it is likely that brain drain will continue for some time to come. Rather than examine the direct results of brain drain, it will be worthwhile to analyze it in terms of the loss society suffers owing to wasted expenses and misused opportunities. The effect of brain drain is more severe in the fields of specialized education like technology and management, in which the cost and effort of training are substantial. India, which strains its fragile economy considerably to spare money for such education, would be badly crippled if it were not to receive any return in terms of specialized service and counsel from those who are nourished by such education. India's despair may already be working to the advantage of other countries. A stage might come when advanced countries would stop expenditure on higher education and instead grab ready-made talent from India to meet their needs for trained manpower. An important aspect of India's higher education scene, particularly in the field of specialized disciplines, is that the funding of facilities is almost entirely by the government, or in other words, by taxpayers' money. Instead, if the government solicits public wealth and harnesses it to support the specialized education scene, the burden which brain drain causes on the government and the taxpayer will not be severe. Harnessing of private wealth, particularly that concentrated in indigenous business and industry, may be in the form of award of scholarship and sponsorship of students. Moreover, a period plan of manpower requirements should help the government utilize the wealth made available optimally. Such planning, to a considerable extent, can ensure that supply of trained talent is consistent with the demand for it. After the fund requirements have been taken care of as mentioned, the government shall concentrate on the quality of training and, if necessary, the management of institutions. If this arrangement is successful and if private money flows substantially into the education sector, the government will have its burden considerably eased. Private investment in education may also help curtail the trend of brain drain. Since all private investments invariably seek returns, private sponsors of students can insist that the students whom they support should serve social interests for a specified minimum period after education. Sponsors should also be allowed to assess the performance of their beneficiaries from time to time to ensure that the invested money is serving its purpose well. If scholarship or sponsorship becomes necessary for every student to pursue higher studies, a sense of responsibility and obligation will naturally develop among the students, which will curtail their urge to leave the country. The second aspect of brain drain, misuse of opportunities, is caused by both the society and the students. In other words, they share the responsibility for such misuse. It is as much the responsibility of society to provide useful and attractive opportunities for livelihood to the educated youth, and as for the youth, in turn, to make use of those opportunities. It is a fact that despite the prevalence of brain drain for a long time, a good part of trained talent continues to stay on within the country. That talent, by its own efforts, overcomes the various challenges and setbacks it encounters and manages to thrive. The evidence of such talent is in the remarkable progress we have made in different fields of activity since independence. It may be that some who do not have it in them to overcome challenges choose the easy way out by quitting the country. Such people, owing to their inability to persevere, would not be successful if they were forced to stay on.